Today we're going to finish a series that we started 6 weeks ago or so. We're going to dive in and finish up this idea of what we've called the 40 days of love. And we've talked about different things. We've talked about love. At first we said love is the greatest aim of our lives. This is the thing that we need to point towards in everything we do, in all the ways that we learn and develop and so forth. Love needs to be the central aim of all that we do. We talked about that love matters above all else. There's nothing else that's more important than the way we love God and the way we love others. And we need to understand that, and that needs to be a premise on which we build our relationships and so forth. We also talked about that we need to learn how to love like Jesus loved us. And we looked at what that meant and how that happened, and we explored how, Jesus loved sacrificially. He loved with grace. He loved in some pretty outrageous ways, really, and so we need to understand that that's what he's calling us to do now, as individuals, as well as a community, a group of people. Then we said that love lets things go. In other words, love forgives. Love overlooks wrongs and offenses, and that's hard, but that's what love does. And last week we talked about the idea that love is not easily angered, and I know we taming the temper is sometimes an issue that all of us deal with on some level, but not even taming it, but learning how to process that very human, very normal, healthy emotion and process it through the lens of love and through what God has done for us. So that's what we covered over the last 5 weeks, and today we're going to wrap everything up, kind of put a bow on it, land the plane, whatever imagery you want to use there. And next week we will dive into our next teaching series that's going to focus on, it's going to begin at Easter, and it's going to focus on this idea that Jesus is for really everyone. Because we're going to look at the different I am statements in the book of John that Jesus said. I am the door, I am the gate, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the resurrection and the life. I am. We're going to look at all those and see how Jesus, in saying those different things, is saying, I am for you, no matter who you are. And so we're going to explore that. But this week, as we bring this together, I want to end with this idea that love never gives up. It never gives up. If any of you have been watching the basketball tournament that happens to be going on right now, which I'll admit I've watched probably more basketball in the last 72 hours than I watched the entire rest of the season combined. But I told somebody I'm feeling a little drunk on basketball at this point. But you only get one weekend out of the year that really happens to that extent. And the one thing I've noticed is in these games, you can't give up. Because I've seen people down 21 points come back and win games. I've seen, people in the last minute, a guy hits a shot from midcourt to win the game. I mean, you can't give up if you want to win. But in love, it's way more important than a stupid game, right? I mean, it's way more important than moving on in a tournament. Love is the way we live. And love, as God describes it, doesn't give up. 1 Corinthians 13 has been kind of a central text. Verse 7 and verse 13 summarizes all this. It says, love never gives up. Love never loses faith. It's always hopeful. And it endures through every circumstance. Verse 13 says, 3 things will last forever: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Now, this text is generally read at weddings, right? We talk about, love, it's going to endure and so forth. And that's very important, and I agree with that 100%. The interesting thing is, though, the context of this passage has nothing to do with marriage. Okay? It's talking about a group of church people caring about one another and caring about the community in which they live. Now, it can be applied to marriage, because obviously love should endure. Love should, put up with people, especially if you're married. You've learned how to forgive if you're married, or you're probably not going to be married much longer because that's just life, right? I mean, so it does apply, but I want us to see that there's a bigger context in this. That love is really something that we as a church and we as individuals within the church need to understand how to endure, how to continue on, even when life is hard, even when situations are difficult, even when relationships are strained, even when we don't understand where another person's coming from. We need to understand that love, real God-given, godly love, endures. And it doesn't give up. So what I want to do is briefly, just really quick, I want to look at the imagery of this verse and then see what implications that may have for us as a church, as well as then as individuals. The first thing, it says that love never gives up. The Greek word there is actually stego, and it really means love bears all things. The imagery that word comes from is like a roof, right? A shelter. So when it says love bears all things, it's not just saying love puts up with things. It's really more of a protective sense. Picture it this way. A mother walks out into the cold, right? It's windy, it's cold, it's rainy, or it's snowing, and you're carrying your infant. What do? Do you just kind of hold them out as you walk? No. You shelter them, right? You snuggle them, you wrap them in cloth, but then you hold them close to your body and you shelter them from the storm, from the wind, from the cold. That's the imagery that this word is really conjuring. Love, it bears things that are coming in to protect the object of the one who's being loved. Do you see that? That's what love does. Love endures the pain that really could harm another, but it soaks it in so the other doesn't have to experience it. Love, it bears, it protects. It's a shelter that people can move into and find and enjoy in the midst of storms, in the midst of bad things. Love is a place where you can be safe because when you love someone, you protect them, you shelter them, you cover them. So love, it bears all things. It covers, it's shielding. But then the second imagery that we see there is that love never loses faith. It also says love is always hopeful. Some translations have love trusts. Right? It continues to trust. It trusts that God is at work in whatever the situation is. Okay, good, bad, whatever the situation is, there's a hopefulness there that love says, I trust that God is working in this circumstance. I may not understand it. I may not, get through it. I may not understand all the details and the ins and outs or know how God is doing, but I'm going to trust that God is at work, and so I'm going to continue to love within the context of a relationship, of a situation. It believes in the person that you love or the object of your love. It believes in them. It trusts in them. It sees the best in them. I mean, there's nothing more powerful than when a child has one of their parents or both of their parents express that they believe in them. Right? They say, I see amazingness in you. It may not always come out, okay, but I see it in you. And I believe in you, and I'm going to do everything I can to help bring that out of you. If it means, sometimes it means rebuking, right? Sometimes it means encouraging. Sometimes it means just simply holding and caring. But when a child hears that their parent believes in them, it brings power. I mean, that's really, ultimately, that's what every kid wants. They want to know that their parent believes in them, sees amazing things in them. That's what love does. It doesn't lose faith. It's always hopeful. It sees a better vision of the future in the object of the one it loves. And then it calls that object, that person, to that better future. And then third thing, it says, love endures. In other words, it keeps going. It sticks to it. Doesn't walk away. It doesn't give up. It keeps fighting for that better future. It keeps protecting. Even when things are really, really hard, even when, those things that are coming in that you're sheltering the one you love from, even when those are painful, even when it's very difficult, love keeps going. It goes just a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further because it loves. And it's willing to put up with everything because it's going to stay with that person, with that relationship, with those people, no matter what happens. Because that's what godly love does. It keeps that vision of a better future in front, and it doesn't take its eyes off of it. It says, this is where we're going. This is a better future. This is what's going to happen. And this is so amazing and good. And we're not going to lose this. I'm going to keep pointing to it over and over and over and over again, even when we get discouraged, even when times are hard. That's what love does. So I gave you a test the very first week. And I think, do you guys have a stack of those? Okay, great. I'm going to pass this test out, and you're going to have about 2 minutes and 43 seconds to take this test again. If you didn't take it the first time, that's okay. It's the exact same test that I gave you 6 weeks ago, okay? And it's just a quick test of how well do I love. And there are different categories, and it just, you rate yourself from like 1 to 9, I think is the numbers. And okay, no one has to see it. Okay, you can cover it up and answer. Be honest, because this is just between you and yourself and God. And I told you when we first took it that you're going to take it again and see if your love quotient, there's probably a better word there, but I don't know what it is, has moved up at all in any of those different areas of relationships. So take just a minute and look through it and rate yourself. I know one of the questions is, something about a future mate or something. Well, if you're married, then okay, you can check that one off. You don't have to worry about that one. Or if you're not interested in ever being married, you don't have to answer that one either. Either way is fine. But go through and just see. How are you doing? And if you need a pen or something, I know there's some on the connection, and our wonderful Kendra has a stack of them in her hand, or a wad of them. I feel like I'm proctoring an exam or something. Okay, you have 64 seconds left. How'd you do? Do you feel like you are any better at loving people now than you were 6 weeks ago, since you've had 6 weeks of thinking about it? And if you didn't take it 6 weeks ago, then this is your baseline, and you're just going to have to start from here. But if you did, I don't know, do you feel like it? Anybody want to say, gosh, I really worked on that area, and I mean, I didn't move a ton, but I saw the needle move a little bit. I know for me, I've been made aware of all the places I don't always love very well, and so I've had to work on that, and I think I've improved slightly in a few of those areas. Anybody else feel like, okay, I improved a little, just a little? Anyone? Okay, we got 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. There's a few. Okay, this wasn't a total waste of 6 weeks of study and teaching. Apparently, a couple people improved. But you see how we need to, when we study things, we can't just study them and say, okay, well, I learned that, let's move on. No, we need to ask ourselves, is it changing us? Am I growing? Am I, as we like to say around here, am I finding new ground on my spiritual journey? Or am I stuck in one place? So when we start talking about love that endures, love that lasts, love that changes people and relationships, then we have to ask ourselves, am I getting better at that? And as a church, I think it brings a challenge to us as a community. Okay, as a group of people who really have a bigger calling than simply to show up here on Sunday mornings and sing a few songs and try to learn a little bit and maybe encourage each other and then go about our business. I think there's a bigger question that we need to be addressing, and that is, how do we as a church love the people around us? Not just the people in the room, but the people in our community, in our town, in our neighborhoods. We want to be a loving church, and that's extremely noble, and I believe in it 100%. But the question is, are we? And how do we know it? Are we doing anything that is loving? The vision, so to speak, if you want to get really businessy for just a second, the vision of Terra Nova, and we're almost, 9.5 years old, the vision has always been to build a community of people who love God and love others. Okay, that continues to be our vision, and I think we're doing that. We got a community of people here, and they love God, and they love others, and they love each other, and we're growing in that. We understand that, and we're building that. But the mission, the action point that we have been called to is not just to build this, but now to help people find new ground on their spiritual journey. Wherever they may be, wherever they're starting from, our goal, what we want to do as a group, as individuals, but also as a church, is to help people say, here's where you're at. What could we do to help you move forward in your spiritual journey? To take a few steps. How could we love you? How could we encourage you? How could we come alongside you and support you and answer questions and ask questions and walk with you and endure life with you? What can we do to help you find new ground on your spiritual journey? Now, the cool thing is, we are now in this building. We've been here for about a year. And it's encouraging because, we have a place, right? We know we're going to be here for as long as we want to be here. We know that God is at work in us and through us. We know that we bring to this community, a light and a hope that we want to share with that community. And I did just a little quick research this week, and there are at least 3,500 residences within a 1 mile radius of our current location. And that's just 1 mile, okay? That goes basically up to William Street, there just past Ohio Wesleyan, and just down to almost Walmart, okay? Take that and then do a big circle. About 3,500 residences, which means, and the average people per residence is 2.4. It's basically about 8,500 people live within 1 mile of this location. Now, most of you don't live within 1 mile of this location. Okay, you live further. Okay, so that means there's 8,500 people within 1 mile of here that we need to be loving. We need to be caring about. Now, there's people in your neighborhood and right around where you live that you need to be caring about as well, okay? I'm not excusing you from caring about the people right around you. And I also understand you don't necessarily live in this neighborhood. You're not here every day. So it's not an easy task when I challenge you to say, our church is going to love this neighborhood in a very real and very practical ways. But we're going to do that as a group. And I've been praying about this, and God has been really, I guess, for lack of a better term, bothering me about this for 6 or 8 months now. Like, what in the world are we going to do? How do we do this? I mean, what does it mean as a church, okay, to love the neighborhood that you are in? I mean, it's one thing to say we love people. And that's very true. And it's one thing to say, whenever someone walks into this door, we're going to love them and we're going to care for them and we're going to support them. And that's wonderful, and we have to do that. But to passively say, we'll just sit here and be really nice and wait for them to show up, they're not going to know. I mean, first of all, it's really ugly out front, and it's not real inviting to walk in. It's not like this big neon sign saying, "Oh, come here and find love." No, it's really ugly. All right, and we're across the street from a cemetery. All right, so it's not like the most exciting, happy, woohoo type place. And there's a factory in the back, so it's not the easiest. So we're going to have to say, we have something, we have love, we have something that's amazing that we're going to do outside of these walls. So I ask, how are we going to truly love our neighborhood? How are we going to cover this neighborhood with spiritual protection? As a church, how can we be that kind of love that bears the brunt of this neighborhood, of the struggles, the real struggles that this neighborhood has? How do we do that? How do we bring that to bear? Because, I got news for you. This is a difficult neighborhood. There's a darkness about this neighborhood that needs light. And we are that light. How are we going to believe in the people that live right around us? I mean, how are we going to cast a vision of a better future to them? And then invite them to come and find new ground on their journey here. But that's what the church has to do. We've got to find ways to do that. So I've got just a little plan that's very loose and very general, but we're going to start there, and it will be refined as we go. And here's basically what I'm thinking. You know, first thing is we're going to be present in the neighborhood. Now, for those of you that don't live right here, I want you to also apply this to your house. How are you going to be present in your neighborhood? Right? I mean, maybe that means simply taking a walk every so often. Maybe that means, being nice to the people that live next door to you or behind you or across the street from you. Maybe that means actually, introducing yourself to them, meeting them. But we're going to be present, and that means we're going to show up. That's why this Thursday, Joe, right, we're going to Woodward, and we're just helping out with their culture fair thing. And we're just, Traditions Night. We're just going to show up. Kendra coordinated that and got Joe involved. And if you want to help with that, there's lots of places that they could use your help. That we're going to build kites and talk about Bermuda and just love kids and be there. It's really simple. And if you want to help with that Thursday night, I encourage you. It's just a way to be present. Go talk to Joe. Go talk to Kendra. They will give you the details on how you can do it. It's a couple hours on a Thursday night. We're going to be present. I've got a meeting in 2 weeks with the principal of Woodward. I just reached out to him and said, hey, we're a church. We've been here for just a year now, and we want to serve you because you're the elementary school that's nearest to us, and we want to serve you. What can we do? Can I get together and, bring you donuts and see what we can do? And so he emailed back and said, I'd love to. Let's get together. And so in 2 weeks after their spring break, we're going to meet up. Because we're going to reach out. That's kind of the second thing is we're going to connect with Woodward as a church. That's the only elementary. Did you know that Woodward is, it is the one elementary in the Delaware school system where the majority of kids are on a school lunch program. And as a matter of fact, they have enough kids that use the school lunch program that they qualified for government funding for a summer lunch program so that the kids who live right around that school will get a lunch over the summer because they might not if it wasn't for that. Okay, that's the school that's within, growing up, we called it, is within spitting distance of this church. And we need to know that. So we're going to connect with them. We're going to serve wherever we can. And that's why we use the donation center. And we're taking stuff to Lutheran Social Service. I got a note this week from Lutheran Social Services, from the president and CEO, which I'm sure it's a form letter, but whatever. But he said, your kind support will make an immediate impact on hungry families in our community. I want to thank the congregation of Terra Nova Community Church for your gift. Thousands of hardworking families and seniors on fixed incomes never expected to need help putting food on their table. Your generous support of the LSS Food Pantry's Super Bowl initiative ensures children will not go to bed hungry. That's what we're doing. And we're going to keep doing that because it makes a difference. Next, we're going to build relationships with people. They're not customers. They're not prospects. They're people. And we're going to build relationships with them. And then last of all, once we do that, then we're going to invite them to come find new ground on their spiritual journey with the rest of us who are trying to find new ground on our spiritual journey. Now, to wrap this up this morning, a person who is very dear to me, I was talking with her this week, and it's interesting because I saw all of these things happening in her story. And I said, I finally emailed her and said, okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. Would you please share your story with Terra Nova? Because they need to hear it. They need to know that what they're doing is actually affecting people in a good way. And so I'm going to ask Sherry if you would come share your story. Sherry is a good friend of mine, and she is also you might have to stand on this side, the cord's a little short, sorry. She's also my yoga instructor, but that's, yeah. So Sherry, I'll get out of the way. Share your story.
Oh gosh. When Jason asked me to do this, I wasn't sure how much to share because I feel like my spiritual journey has started when I was born and in different ways. But I will just start where Jason comes in to my story. I am a yoga teacher, and I had a space on the east side of town, and a mutual friend of ours brought Jason to a very early morning yoga class, so it was either just the three of us or just Jason and I. And I guess I should kind of go back a little bit into my childhood. I was raised Catholic, and I also, around age 6, watched probably the scariest movie with my babysitter that was ever made, and that just brought a lot of fear of God and religion into my life, and I carried that throughout my whole life. So when it was just Jason and I in the yoga classes, we would talk just a little bit about that, and I gradually started seeing my view changing. And when it came time to renew my lease, I decided not to do it. I prayed about it. It didn't feel right. And so I decided not to do that and just told all of my students, it was summertime and that we would just do it at a park or my backyard. And Jason and Kristen actually came to me and said, we would love for you to teach at Terra Nova. You can, as long as it doesn't coincide with something else that is going on, you're welcome to teach whenever you want. And I was like, why would I be teaching at a church? It was so not me. And my initial thought was, no, it's not happening. And I fought it. I knew here that I was supposed to do it, but up in here, I'm not having it. So eventually I said yes. And I was teaching here for a few months, I think, and I remember one time Kristen and I were walking out after a yoga class, and we got to talking about how I was brought here, and I said, I have no idea. Now, mind you, I was not coming to the Sunday church services. I was just strictly teaching out of here. And I told Kristen on our way out, I said, I have no idea why I'm here. And she just so sweet. I'm sure you guys all know Kristen, Jason's wife, just so nice. I bet you're gonna find out. And I'm like, what does she mean by that? Why did she say that? I think she knows why I'm here and she's not telling me. All these things going through my mind. And that always stuck in my head, that conversation I had with her. And so then one day after a yoga class, Jason just said to me, he knows how I teach. I just teach about love in my yoga classes. I've always loved love. And he said, hey, just so you know, I'm starting a series on love. And I'm like, sure you are. Of course you are. Sign me up. I'm coming. And so I invited my mom to come with me, Jan, if you guys don't know my mom. Hi, Mom. We started going to the series of love. I've been coming ever since. I think that was in the fall, end of summer. And it's just so crazy, this journey that I have been on. It kind of chuckles me that, I chuckle to myself that I'm up here right now in front of you talking about this. Anybody that knows, like a typical yoga teacher, this is not, we're pretty much all about self, and this is the complete opposite of that. Although there are many, many aspects that are the same, which love is huge. That still is a big part of my yoga practice. And I started reading the Bible. My mom bought me a Bible, and I started just setting time aside daily for that, and that for me was just, that just exploded my, everything just was then like, oh my gosh, this is, so if you don't have a daily yoga practice, or not yoga, and yoga practice, if you don't have time set aside to read out of the Bible, I can just tell you from my experience that's probably the biggest thing that I could have done for myself with my relationship and strengthening that relationship that I have with God. But so I love this. I have started, my mom and Marianne and myself have started, we've been doing the Rick Warren 40 Days, the Purpose-Driven Life. And that guided me to another video of Rick Warren's that isn't part of that, but it was a video on just knowing God. And it started talking about how he was golfing with some golfers, and they kept using the word mulligan. And he was like, "What's a mulligan?" And they said, "It's like a do-over in golf." And when I heard that, and he started talking about how we're given a mulligan, that is where I am in my journey. I have been given a mulligan. But he talked about how you're helped when you're given that. Sorry. So, if you are given that mulligan, which I think everybody is, take advantage of it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. So, we have people that are part of this church that are finding new ground on their spiritual journey. And I mean, the amazing thing, there's tons of amazing things about Sherry, but one of the things that was so fascinating to me is, in the last 6 months or so, as she just started really coming to church. It just so happens it was here, okay? I think she's brought more people to church because she's so excited about what's happening and than like anyone else ever, and that's so cool because she's finding new ground on her spiritual journey. And she wants to invite other people to join her on that. If you're finding new ground on your spiritual journey, I hope you love the people around you enough to invite them to join you on that journey. Don't leave them hanging out to dry. We have a space here. We have room. That's what we're about. And that's why for the last 40 days we've talked about love. Not because I want, you to be better at loving others, but because the more you love, the more you will share God's love with those around you. And the more you do that, the more people meet Jesus. And they find new ground in their spiritual journey. And really the question we have to ask ourselves as a church and as individuals, do we love people enough to do that, to invite them in? Or is it too scary to put ourselves out there like that? And that's the challenge of the 40 Days of Love, is to love beyond the easy relationships. And as a church, to become a beacon of love in this neighborhood, in this community, in this town. Because that's what we're going to do. And we're going to work together to do it because lives can be changed if we do. Let's pray together. God, I'm asking you this morning on behalf of this entire community of faith to bless our efforts as we try to love this neighborhood and this community and this town. God, I pray that you would bring people into our lives that we could share your love and your hope and your grace with. And God, I know that this area specifically needs hope. and we can be that hope. So I pray, God, that you would help us to do that in a powerful way. Even this week, as we lead up to celebration of the resurrection, I pray that you would bring people to our doors, but then also that you would send us to reach people and to care about them and to love them. I thank you that Terra Nova is made up of people who are so full of love and so ready to share their lives with others that now, God, I pray you would bring more people in to do that. Thank you for people like Sherry, who is such a blessing. And you bless us by letting her share how you have worked in her life. And God, I know everybody here has a story. And I pray that you would continue to use those stories to move us along and to challenge us and to bring more people into a relationship with you, that they might find that kind of hope. God, make us a church that loves as you love. We give you the glory in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you so much for being here today, for sharing. As you go, there are invitations over on the connection table booth thingy. If you want to take them and give them to any friends or family that just invites them to the Easter service, you're welcome to take as many as you want, as long as you're going to use them. I would love for you to do that. Why don't you stand and let's have a benediction. And now, my brothers and sisters, my family, my friends, new and old, may you know the width and the height and the depth and the breadth of the love that God has for you. Go in his love and his peace. Amen. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.